When I was talking about the kinetic, static, electromagnetic, and testing things outside the paranormal, this is my last thing, and then I'll let you go. So I have 3 pieces of equipment here. I have a motion sensor, I have a proximity sensor or a REM pod, and I have a static sensing device. So this detects ambient static. This, of course, we know detects electromagnetic radiation. And then this is going to detect motion. And the reason why I put these 3 things together is because they kind of like hold each other accountable. Because we can have a lot of scenarios where the proximity sensor is going off and we're like, oh my gosh, thank you, oh my gosh, there's a temperature deviation, somebody farted, it's amazing, it's a ghost. And there's a lot of things that we can't debunk with this thing's gonna go off like crazy. There's a lot of things that we can't debunk when it comes to proximity sensors, because even down to your proximity to a highway and truckers with their shortwave radios will set off your device if it catches. Those radio waves travel miles and miles and miles and miles and miles, and they will not always set off your device. Do we all know what radio waves look like? Radio waves look like this, and they don't stop. They just go, especially shortwave. They just go, they're fast and long, but they will not always catch a vibe on your proximity sensor. There are some times where I can press this, and it'll be long-ish, and there's some times where let's see if we can make it happen. Where it's like super, super long. It depends on basically where it catches the wave, which is a really cool thing, because then also sometimes it's just, and that's it. Sometimes it's, and if we are not versed in how our equipment works outside the paranormal, those could seem like different responses. It's not. It's just catching a different part of the radio wave, which I think is really cool, and it allows you to like visualize radio waves. So we do see the volatility with this in a radio wave, but this does not go off with a radio wave. That's a static sensor, so it's not gonna go off with my radio wave. So already, if my proximity sensor goes off and I have a static device next to it, I'm like, that could be a radio wave. That could be a radio wave. But if I have kinetic energy, which is movement, and you need kinetic energy in order to create static. Don't worry, I'm not gonna go down the rabbit hole on how static is made. We all generally know how static is made. The discharge of static, though, is like lightning in the sky. That's just discharged static electricity. The cool part about this is that static discharge has its own electromagnetic radiation. So if I am creating static and there's a discharge, my proximity sensor does go off, and so does my static device. And what that tells me is, since these 2 things are holding each other accountable, now I know some form of static discharge just set off my proximity device. That is so much more compelling than it sitting in the middle of the floor and you going, touch the box if you're here. It's a ghost. I never know how to end these, so that's all.